Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Big guest this week, fresh off the Mizzou homecoming parade where he announced he's running for Secretary of State and before a Mizzou win.
That's right.
Senator Caleb Rowden, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
So it was a little bit of suspense. You didn't just come right out of session and announce, but Saturday in front of the hometown folks last weekend, you announced you're running for Secretary of State. Why?
Well, you know, it took me a minute to decide that this is what we wanted to do. You know, it's a life changing decision to some degree. I remind everybody the first time I ran for office, I was 28 with 0 kids, and now I'm 41 as of Sunday with 3 kids. And so when you think about next steps, you're talking about 5 people and not just one. And so it took me a minute, a lot of time, conversations with Aubrey to say, we want to continue to serve.
So you get permission.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But, you know, Secretary of State, people that don't know about it's a far-reaching office. Everybody knows about elections, but there's securities, there's business licenses, there's libraries. You know, it touches every Missourian right where they are in a number of different ways. And, you know, for somebody like me who, has been in the legislature now for 12 years, but really is interested in public service in the truest sense of the word, as I was thinking about, what to do next, Secretary of State was the thing that made the most sense. And so we had to make sure we wanted to do it, but we're in, and I'm going to run as hard as I've ever ran any campaign.
I got the sense you're either going to run for this or you're going home.
That's right. Yeah. And you know, on certain days, depending on who I was talking to, they probably heard both. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I like I said, I wanted to make sure that we were excited. You don't want to run for something that you don't want to do. And so it just took us a while to get there mentally, but we're there, and I'm really, really excited about the opportunity.
I mean, really, you got it's a great legacy. Kirkpatrick, Roy Blunt, Matt Blunt. I mean, there's been several tremendous Missourians.
Yeah, Senator Blunt was, and he tells me, and maybe he was just telling me to try to get me to do it, but he said it's the favorite job he's ever had, right? So he said, and he's had some good ones, right? So. So yeah, big shoes to fill, but you know it's a great opportunity to continue to serve the public, and which really has always been, whether I was in ministry or now in politics, it really is the motivation.
So let's talk about the race. You have Senator you're familiar with, Denny Hoskins from Warrensburg running, Shane Scholler, somebody I know that you know from Greene County.
Yep.
Assuming that's the field, what's the strategy?
Well, I mean, I think I want it to look a little bit different than maybe campaigns have in Missouri for a while. We're writing scripts and talking about stuff for our launch here in a couple of weeks. And, you know, Missouri's a bright red state. There's no doubt about that. But there's a whole host of folks in St. Louis and Kansas City and everywhere else that the Secretary of State has a tremendous amount of influence and authority over. And so we want to talk about issues right where people are. And I want to talk to anybody. I'll go to a union hall in St. Louis County. I'll go to a Republican event in Greene County. I'll go to a Farm Bureau event in Lafayette County. We want to talk about it, and I don't want just to scare people to that the other guys are bad to get them to vote for me. I want them to vote for me because they have confidence and trust in me that I'm the guy for the job.
I sit up in the peanut gallery and get to watch you guys, maybe as much or more than any other Missourian does. There's a feeling among some folks that you're not as conservative as others. But I really think if you step back and look at your time in the House, and part of it's being in the right place at the right time, but still, look at your time in the Senate, you might be the most accomplished conservative to serve in the legislature.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember having conversations a few years ago when we were thinking about running for Congress, which we decided not to do, which is clearly the right decision. But, you know, you talk to folks in D.C., they kind of framed it, they use the term governing conservative, which I think is a really, really interesting and the right descriptor for me, right? The only way that conservatism matters, one, is if you win an election, and two, if you have relationships and trust and just an ability to actually move the needle on the issues that we're talking about, right? You know, there are people who say there are campaign conservatives. Well, a campaign conservative can't just yell and scream about something and then not have the ability to go to the legislature or go wherever they're going and get that thing done, right? So I'm really, really proud of what we've accomplished. I mean, to your point, my resume in getting not just getting some conservative things done, but getting the biggest of the big conservative things done probably is up there with anybody's that the state's ever seen.
Well, there's a difference. I get to see it. Then folks that get on the internet and complain about it, and those have to go and end a filibuster, have to go in the office and work through the issues.
Yeah.
And get the not just 18, not just 6, not just 10, but get the entire Senate to move something That's not as sexy as going and complaining about it.
Yeah,
It's a lot of work.
You know, I say it all the time. The people who frustrate me in politics and on the campaign trail are the ones that act like everything is black and white. There are black and white issues in politics. Pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. You know, there are some things that just for the most part, you know, there is this position and there is another position, but 95% of the stuff we do in the legislature and that people talk about in their everyday lives, there's some nuance to it, right? And so, you know, as a part of this campaign, I want to lead the charge in saying, hey, look, I'm not afraid to be honest with you. Being honest with you may at certain points not be the most politically expedient thing for me to do, but I'm going to explain the nuance because I think an educated Missouri voter is better than an uneducated one. So let's tell them the truth. Let's be honest about the nuance, and then let them make the decision.
So tell them about the Senate. Last year of Governor Parsons' term, last year of your term.
Yeah.
Lots of folks, you're running for statewide office, your opponent's going to be in the chamber, a guy running for governor's in the chamber, lieutenant governor. I mean, it is it's a room full of folks that are going to have a lot of competing interests. The last year of a governor's term is usually not the most productive. The second year of the session isn't the most productive. What's going to happen?
Well, it's probably all of those things that you said are true. It's probably a little too early to know for sure. I'm not have never been and will never be the person that tries to change who I am to get something done. I'm not gonna punish Senator Hoskins because we're gonna be on the ballot running against each other. It's just not.
Well, in the Senate, that doesn't work.
It doesn't,
right?
and I'm not. I would never do it anyway. But you're right. It just causes more trouble than it's worth. So my hope is that we can settle on. We have our fall caucus next week. We can settle on some agenda items.
That wonderful family discussion.
Hey, it's at Brent's, and we have a good time. But hopefully we can settle on some agenda items that we think are worthy of rowing the same direction on. And we're having conversations with Senator Rizzo, and we want to make sure that we can walk out of that session with some accomplishments, and that there are some big things. The FRA's out there, IP reforms out there, education reforms out there. There's a bunch of things that are either continuing to rise to the top or moving to the top that we're going to have to talk about.
Let me ask, you mentioned education reform. Commissioner Van Dieven announced she's leaving the position next summer. They'll be selecting a new person. You've been as active on education issues since you first ran for office as anybody I know.
Yeah.
What would you like to see in a commissioner of DESE?
I'd like to see somebody, and I think Commissioner Van Dieven obviously went through some really interesting, tumultuous times with Governor Greitens and getting kicked out and coming back. I think I'd like to see somebody who is willing to ruffle some feathers every once in a while. You don't want to get so far out in front that you're making DESE something that they're not supposed to be. But I also think there is an opportunity if that role and the state board is used properly, to really move the needle in the right direction. And so the idea that we do have failing public schools, everybody knows about that. It never seemed like there was the right level of urgency, to do the things to fix that.
I tell you, that just makes so much sense. You've been known as a charter person.
Yeah. I
know folks that are known as a traditional school person. I'm not sure that from a Rick Francis to a Caleb Rowden, to me, there's an element of schools, and there's an entire bureaucracy, and there's an entire DESE board that wants to tell you two things. When you find that bad administrator, which I think so many Missourians have interacted with now, I found my corn man, other people have, you're just like, okay, here's a problem. Wait, look. And they're like, well, it's not my fault. Give me more money.
Yeah. And I saw a graph the other day, or actually this morning, student enrollment is up by 8 or 9% in public schools. The number of administrators, principals, et cetera, is up by 88%. Like, there are real issues there. If we either want to yell and scream about, okay, we're pro-charter or we're pro-public school, or we actually want to fix the problem. I've always been the guy that actually wants to fix the problem. It's really, really hard because you
have to admit there is a problem. And right now, I see a whole legion of people who are here to. It's like the cop on South Park. There's nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And then they give me more money.
Yeah, and
that's always what's
and I've always said
that's not real.
To my Democrat friends and to my Republican friends who kind of take the teachers union line hook and sinker. You have to. What you're saying is not true. You just do. Now, maybe you're saying it for political reasons. Maybe you're saying it for something else. But I'm willing to say that I want public schools to succeed. I want some of this other stuff too. I'm willing to say I want public schools to succeed. You're not even willing to say there's a problem, right? And so to your point, until that happens, until some folks get are willing to remove themselves from, this special interest that in Missouri is really, really significant. The teachers' unions and those unions, it's tough. But I think I'm hopeful that the next director can, take the bull by the horns, work with the legislature. Obviously, Desi doesn't make law, but I think they have the opportunity to move the needle in a direction that will help kids.
We're in the show me state. We're in Harry Truman's home state. The buck has to stop somewhere.
That's right.
I don't know where it stopped.
And education
it sure as hell didn't stop in the commissioner's office now.
No, and that's a problem. And I think I've had conversations with Senator O'Loughlin and so many others that we recognize an issue, but we don't really even know where to go to fix the issue other than, changing the law, right? Sometimes that's maybe not the right answer to the question if we had a bureaucracy and a group of folks that were actually doing the things they were supposed to do.
You mentioned getting kicked out. I think whatever your position on schools were, you shouldn't try to go around the Missouri Senate. You shouldn't have major decisions by non-confirmed people.
Yeah.
To me, you look back, there's a lot of serious positions that are unfilled. You do a real disservice to a new governor to not let him focus on all the things of becoming a first-year governor. When you have these positions, they're meant to cool things. Yeah. They're meant to be the show me state. You're going to show me. Are you concerned about the number of unfilled gubernatorial appointments in the state?
Well, I think there are some big ones that need to be filled. I think when Governor Nixon left, there's way too many boards and commissions. We know that.
I think that was Governor Nixon's main mistake. Was he left?
He left.
They could move him.
Yeah, I think at some point he just stopped caring about that. But yeah, I think we should be more intentional and diligent, and it has to start at the executive level. But saying, okay, if there's a position that's actually needed, then let's fill it. If it's not needed, let's get rid of it.
There's 10 commissions you probably really need filled. You need them done right. They need to be filled with people or reappointed or on real terms.
As the chair of the gubernatorial appointments committee, we see appointments that come through of commissions we've never heard of that make no sense, that we can't even contemplate what they would do. That's the first question we ask, not what's your qualification? We ask, what in the world does this thing do, right? And so that probably signals.
Maybe you should have the executive branch. Maybe you put those on the back burner, and you look at those 10 commissions that really matter.
That's right.
And you fill them.
Make sure they're.
And then if you get to April and you've got the chiropractor board, which I'm sure is important, you fill that, right?
That's right.
Before I let you go, Mizzou, 7-1, bowl eligible before Halloween.
Yeah.
Going into tough Georgia next weekend.
I'm way too optimistic. I'm a Mizzou homer, as everybody knows, but yeah, we have.
But even so,
Georgia's rock star tight end is out for the year. They're not quite as good as
7-1. They could have been 8-0.
They should
very easily.
They should have been 8-0.
I mean, it's nice. Drinkwitz comes in, great recruiter, great enthusiasm. Now he's got some wins to show for it. It's a good time to be a Mizzou Tiger.
I'm excited, and the basketball team's going to be good. I saw Coach Gates Saturday, so yeah, it is a good time to be a Tiger. Everything's hitting on all cylinders.
You've seen the worst time I've ever seen of Mizzou when it was just an open dumpster fire.
Yeah.
You've seen now. I don't know in my professional career if Mizzou's ever been better.
I don't.
Not just athletics, the campus. You see all these other the campus is quiet.
Yeah.
The AAU situation moving in a good direction. They're getting investment. Leadership matters.
Yeah. Well,
and choice turn that around.
It's Moon. It's an engaged board. It's a legislature being able to help when the situation called for. But yeah, it's awesome. I'll be so excited when I leave. Win or lose the Secretary of State's race, when I leave the Senate. To see that turnover and just that play some small.
You had to carry
it's pretty awesome.
Kurt Schaefer and you had to carry a major load to keep that place from being gutted.
Yeah.
You're handing it off to whoever you hand it off to in the Senate representing Columbia.
Yeah.
In a so much better place than you got it.
Yeah, and it's exciting. It's exciting. And Columbia's my home, and it'll always be my home. And so just to have that as something to hang your hat on when you leave is pretty awesome.
Well, we're glad you came south. If you're ever here to join us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Always good to do it.
We'll be right back with the guru of Boone County politics, John Ratliff, joining us after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Marc Ellinger with Ellinger & Bell, welcome back to the show, sir.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Governmental consultant extraordinaire Sharon Jones, thank you for joining us.
I've had coffee and I'm ready.
John Ratliff of Palm Strategies, thank you for joining us, sir.
Always happy to be here.
So, Marc, you're an attorney. It's nice we have two attorneys and then two of us regular folks here on the show this morning. Dean Plocker, the events of the week. So it comes off, he wanted to do a new constituent contact software system, right? I think it kind of exposed some issues in that staff, some staff shakeup. Now there's an expense issue. So let's assume the worst, right? Let's assume that he filled out some expense reports to the state that he'd also had his campaign pay for, and he goes back and corrects it. What's the fallout?
I mean, a lot of that has to do with the timeline. If he finds out and he writes the check, in a relatively quick and reasonable manner, then I don't think it's a big issue. On the other hand, if there's a story and the fallout's coming, and now I go back and write a check, I think it becomes a little bigger issue.
It's also doing it the week before Halloween or doing it the week before Valentine's Day. This is during sessions, a whole different situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a different media imprint from it, and obviously the staff issues that are going on inside the Capitol have a significant play into this factor, and I think that's probably a bigger story even than the story about his expenses and the other issues that are going on over there.
Sharon, you've seen a lot of these. Tell me what. Just tell me what you're seeing right now, like we said over at Coffee Zone.
I see a man who maybe thought he could get away with something, found out he couldn't. He's trying to make it right. I think it's a low enough dollar amount that unless there is a lot more to be exposed, the thing that I'm more concerned about is the fact that we don't actually have a good system in Missouri for dealing with ethical violations. We do if you're talking about campaign finance or lobbying. You can go over to the Ethics Commission and arguably they can enforce the law.
I think they do a good job of this commission, but
That's fair.
They're tied a lot by the law.
But they exist.
Yes.
There is literally no place that you as a citizen or a whistleblower can go to say an elected official has violated general ethics rules.
The one thing you said, do you think Dean Blogger intentionally did this? Because that's the part I'm like, I just don't know that he did.
I don't have enough information to say
Still
in a
wrong.
legal sense, but knowing Dean, I don't think it was probably intentional.
Doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it right.
But I get you. I'm kind of with you.
Yeah.
John, rather you do some work with some political campaigns that Dean's a part of. It looks to me like there's a staff issue. The first thing was just really much ado about nothing. The second thing, you screwed up.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things. There's actually multiple things here to go through. I think first off, if anyone who knows Dean at all, there's not a corrupt bone in his body. I think he's a little, he's a football player. He's got the kind of like meathead, jockhead approach, also an attorney. So not all, a little brains up there too. But he talks a lot. He kind of runs a little loose. He wasn't paying a lot of attention in this moment. And I think that caught up with him and he immediately corrected it. And then
he ran a little loose with his staff. I think he ran a little loose. The contact management thing just seems to be a difference of opinion. It just seemed like the staff, not manufactured it, but it was not that big of a deal.
I think
the expense thing he screwed up. He legitimately made
the expense thing, he made a mistake. He corrected it. It just so happens about an hour and a half later, Missouri Independent gets access to this, requests a series of questions just about that exact expense. I think that's a really big problem. I think the biggest problem that our members, in the House are going to start looking into is the role of the administration. And Republicans have been in charge now for over 20 years. And I think when we came in, rightfully so, we cleaned house. And I think 20 years of bureaucracy building up in that building, you can talk to a ton of members long before this ever happened about their frustrations. I get a weekly phone call from a member extremely angry about some new problem that them as elected official by the people of Missouri have no say of what's going on in their building. Now, the administration won't even allow our members to put American and Missouri flags out in front of their offices. I mean, that's how corrosive this bureaucracy has become inside the building. And I think that's set up a much bigger problem.
But I think that comes from the term limit issue that we've developed. If you go back when I got started in politics, you had a strong speaker. They were functionally career speakers, and they exercised almost absolute power. The staff was just that. They were staff. They were told what to do. Term limits has changed that. I mean, how many speakers of the House do we have in a period of 10 years? At least 5, sometimes more than 5. And the result is, because there's so much turnover, what's the consistency? What always stays? The staff. And then people get used to that and they say, well, this is how we've done it. Just delegate it to the clerk. Just delegate it to this person. And the next thing you know, that bureaucracy becomes more in charge than it was ever intended to be.
Sharon, tell me this, though. There's a part of this. Clean Missouri came in.
Yeah.
Term limits were done in 92. They came in 02.
Yeah.
So Clean Missouri comes in. And I had a lot of admiration for the campaign, the way they went about it. It was a very intelligently done. If you like politics, you had to appreciate it. The part I didn't like, a staff person, young kid gets out of college at 23, gets a job. Normally they would accrue 4 or 5 years experience, become a master of some piece of public policy. They would go apply their trade and make money. Clean Missouri penalized that kid, Republican and Democrat. So the staff stays longer because they have to. And I think that may be, as much as anything is, you have other people that got off before this draconian law came in. Is it fair to penalize that staff person?
So I think that it's not, but people were abusing that system. We were seeing people get their job with that trade group or lobbying corps before they left their state office. And that's a problem. And that's, what Clean Missouri was aimed at. Did it also penalize good actors who were in good faith just becoming experts and looking for their next step? Yes. But I think we can all agree it's a problem if you, as a chief of staff for someone who's a chair of a committee, have a job lined up for years.
What is it on that elected official? Marc Ellinger, tell me this. If you go get this job and you're a staffer and you work for a senator or whoever, you've been elected official, it's on the senator. The actual governmental action's on the elected official.
Right. But you have the background, you have the contacts, and the concern there, obviously, and the reason Clean Missouri went down that path, and I actually disagree with what they came up with. I think the concept was good. The execution was horrible. But
I don't mind penalizing elected officials, and you can't lobby for 2 years. That's fine.
But the staff is not necessarily developing the expertise that they're used to be. And I think that's the big difference, because there's so much rotating around over there. I mean, I hate to be the broken record and go back to term limits, but if you're a staff member, your best case scenario is you're going to be with somebody in the House for 8 years. Best case scenario. More likely, you're going to come in, in year 4 of their term or year 6 of their term and be there for a couple of years and then go to another House member or maybe go over to the Senate. You don't really develop expertise in policy the same way that you develop expertise with personality. And I think that was the concern, is people were being hired not because they understood, education policy better than anyone else. They understood Senator X, and they would go over and have the wedge with Senator X. And that was the concern. I think it's just poor execution.
Dean Plogger, he did an interview with us earlier this week, said he's staying. Dean Plogger still a speaker in January?
Yes.
He's still a speaker.
Still a speaker in January.
Still a speaker?
100% the speaker for the rest of next year and a strong candidate for lieutenant governor.
To me, I just think that he's going to be the speaker. And then you go from there, right?
Yeah, I think
one starts in January, one's in August. I think he's definitely the speaker in January.
I think you do a good job as speaker, continue to do a good job as speaker. That will obviously further his campaign for lieutenant governor. I mean, the reality is that campaign starts in June for all intents and purposes. And so
you're not just a guy that is a friend of Caleb Rowden, a consultant for Caleb Rowden. You predicted he would run, and he's running, right?
Best man at my wedding, yeah.
But he's running for Secretary of State. Campaign launched at homecoming up at Mizzou, right?
Yep, we set it up. He shows up. He was kind of tired, a little jet lagged, and we get everything set up. Big launch. Obviously, he wanted to announce to the hometown team on a big day for Mizzou, obviously, that he was taking that next step in his service to the people of Missouri, and he's going to run a campaign for Secretary of State. I think, as he said, this campaign is going to look a little different than past campaigns for other statewide offices. Caleb's a unique guy. I think he's one of the most talented politicians in the state of Missouri, and I think he's going to bring a fresh approach and a new vision for the people of Missouri, unlike what they've maybe seen in recent history.
Caleb Brown's a serious guy that has pulled a heck of a load leading the Senate the last 5 years. What's his chances statewide?
I think he's a really appealing candidate across the board. I mean, he kind of hits that perfect spot where he's smart, he understands the policies, he comes with a completely clean record. There's no baggage that comes along with him. He's been a prolific fundraiser and continues to be one. I mean, I think he jumps in the race as the leader, and I think everybody else in the Secretary of State's race ought to be really concerned about their opportunities to prevail.
Tell me about Caleb Brown. What do you think?
I think he's the adult in the room, and that's what we need right now. I mean, honestly, like, I know you probably thought, oh, I'll be the one that's like, no, not Caleb. But I think he's got a real chance to win. And frankly, I think that he's the one who can actually run the office in a way that it needs to be run, which as a functioning government office.
But you watch a lot of these races, put your political hat on. Is being the adult in the room a handicap in a Republican primary in 2024?
You know, it would be if it were not for so many other conservatives getting in. I think that we're going to see a very similar dynamic there.
Shane Schuler, the Greene County clerk. You have Denny Hoskins from Wartburg State Senator. Caleb, that's 3.
Uh-huh.
Is there another one?
Who did I hear? Yes, there is. I'm not going to say.
Gotcha.
But the point is that...
So can he raise enough money to get over being the adult in the room?
Yeah.
Can he raise enough money to get over being the adult in the room?
Absolutely, and I think Sharon's right. It's a split. You're going to see that. You're going to see that very hardcore conservative constituency split. Denny Hoskins is going to carry some baggage with him. He's going to have actual people that don't want him in that office, period. Shane Scholler is a regional candidate. He's going to struggle getting out of Southwest Missouri, out of Greene County. Caleb comes in with he touches all the bases, and he's good. I mean, he's just a solid guy when it comes to getting work done, and that's what we need.
Here's the thing that always raises my eyebrow. Caleb Rowden has been at the forefront of probably the most actual bill passage of conservative things. He's been in the room actually getting it done, getting the filibuster over with. That maybe he might be the most accomplished conservative in state history. It's always bizarre to me when people say he's not the most conservative. Well, he actually has accomplished more than most people you think are conservative.
Yeah, I think the big thing, and this race is going to talk a little bit about, is those that talk about doing things and those that actually do things. And I think you can put Caleb's record up to anyone and everyone in the Missouri General Assembly who's actually got more things done. I mean, we have spent a lot of time over the last several years grinding out what it takes to get conservative legislation done. And not just in name only, like we have recently. We've actually got real things done, real meat on the bone for the people of Missouri. He's done that.
But we're about to get kicked off the air, and I'm going to be mad about that. So who won the week?
Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. Not only, as John mentioned, did he raise a bunch of money this week, got a huge check, but more importantly, he stayed out of the fray. Everybody's sniping at each other right now between Ashcroft and Eigel, obviously Scharf and Plocker. You're seeing all this back and forth. And look who's just out there doing the job, raising money, meeting everybody. You can't go anywhere that Mike Kehoe hasn't already been.
Who won the week?
Holly Thompson Raider. I think that it may be short-lived victory, but right now she can sit at home and raise money and laugh as her race gets easier.
Who won the week?
Caleb Rowden, he shows up announced at the hometown crowd for a big Mizzou game and is immediately the front runner, and I don't think he'll ever change from that.
I'm going to say my buddy Brandon Rathard up at the Eagle and KWOS. Morning host here. A lot of folks had a lot of hours of enjoyment thanks to Brandon driving to work. He's leaving to take a job with the Attorney General. I say he won the week. Look forward to working with him in his new role. I hope you'll win the week next week by joining us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.